Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center family. We have a treat today. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Tim Harrell. He is from the Civilian Complaint Review Board. He's going to give you some information on how to protect yourself and know your rights when you are approached by an NYPD, New York Police Department officer. So this is good information to know. Please feel free to take notes. Feel free to snap pictures if you need or record any portion of this. Just remember, this is going to be recorded. So if you need to look at this podcast again, just use that link that you use to get in and you will see the recording. Let's get something out of the way, paperwork. In the chat box, please enter your first name, your last name, and your teacher's name. Please put that in the chat box. Take a few moments to do that, because what happens is you get credit for your attendance and we get credit for you. Okay, take a moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, type your first name, your last name, and your teacher's name. Oh, please do not put nicknames. No DJ Jiggy, because we can't find you. Because when we have to go in and type your name in to give you credit, you won't get credit. So you want to make sure you get every hour that you are doing something at Mid-Manhattan. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our presenter, Tim Harrell. Mr. Harrell, thank you and welcome. Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Sula. How are you?
Good morning, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us. I forgot to introduce Carlos. Carlos, would you put yourself on the screen? Everyone, this is Carlos. He is our case manager, also the creator of our podcast, and he's also here today. So thanks, Carlos. Namaste. Okay, Mr. Timothy, let me ask you a few questions.
Yes.
So everyone, I let you know who Tim is. I want to ask you, Tim, how did you get to, what was your passion to and motivation to getting into this job?
Well, honestly,
and how
I
long
wanted
have
to
you been
leave.
working there?
Say that again.
And how long have you been working there?
Oh, okay. So I've been at the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board for about four years. And I think the thing that motivated me was I wanted to leave where I was at. So I was working on on Woods Island in this men's shelter as a intake specialist, and I found out about the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board. I had known about it for a while, actually, and I thought, like, I wanted to do that. Like, I wouldn't mind. Like, I seen that they had an opening in the outreach unit, and I said, you know what, I would like to see like what that's about. So I did some research. I asked some people who knew about it. I had a friend who worked there, and she told me about the agency and how it had changed. So a lot of people don't know that the agency is about 50 years old, right? And sorry about that. And at one point in time, it was called the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board, but it wasn't all civilians. You had police officers on the board. And so it was kind of almost like having a negative encounter, an encounter that you didn't like with a police officer, and then going to file a complaint at this agency where you're supposed to go to file a complaint about an officer or an encounter, and then you're like complaining to the police because they're not civilians. Right. So then the Honorable Mayor David Dinkins came along and a little over 25 years ago, and he actually changed the board from police officers to civilians. So you do have 3 individuals who are appointed to the board by the NYPD police commissioner, but even those 3 are civilians, right? They're just the only ones who have like prior law enforcement background, right?
Right.
So when I got there to the agency, and I did an interview with a young lady by the name of Raynice, and she's a lawyer, and former prosecutor, and she was giving me the and I did the interview with her, and she was like, "I want you to work with me." Right then and there, she's like, "I want you to work with me," and I will never forget that woman, and very grateful to her.
Well,
And
for those students who don't know this, Tim comes into the school, or he would come into the school, and he would give presentations in the class. And he's very animated. He has good stories that he tells, personal experiences. And you'll see from his presentation today, just have fun. Just tell your stories. And 15 minutes before the end of this podcast, students, if you want to ask questions, please put your questions in the chat box. And 15 minutes before the end, we'll stop at 12 and we'll look at the chat box to see if there are any questions that Tim can answer. Does that sound good, Tim?
yes,
Okay, so take it away.
we could actually, if they have questions they want to ask while we're going through it, that would be great. I don't really like talking at people. I like to have a conversation with
Right.
people.
Unfortunately, they would have had to have let Carlos know ahead of time.
Okay, understood.
That's the way this platform works. So,
Understood.
right, Carlos?
Yes.
We can't hear you, Carlos. You're muted.
It's
There
not
you
too
go.
late. If students want to appear live on the podcast, they can.
Okay.
I could just put that information up on the screen if that's something that you would like to have done, Mr. Harrell. We could do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
if they would like
That's right.
to speak or jump in, it would be great.
Okay. It might also be worthy to mention that if students might have questions but might not want to appear on the screen, which is fine. If that's the case, you can definitely just type your questions or your comments in the chat box, and we can get to you that way. Okay. So I'm putting that right here on the bottom of the screen. If you want to appear live on the podcast, please send me an email and we can arrange that for you. We can make that happen.
Excellent.
Just let us know, Mr. Harrell, when you're ready to start receiving guests, so I can put them on the screen for you.
That'd be great.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Carlos. Okay, Tim.
Thank you.
Take it away. You're on.
That's your only question?
If you want to volunteer any other information, because this is a platform where students can see the kind of work that you do and maybe get inspired by, your job and how you got there and how many years and what motivated you.
Okay. So again, I got hired there, and I did a training. You have to do a training, and then I went out with a young lady by the name of. I was assigned to go to certain places with her, and her name is Yahaira Alvarez. She's actually the director of the outreach unit, outreach and intergovernmental affairs. She's actually the director of my unit. And she's actually the executive secretary and liaison to the board at the time as well. She's wearing a couple of hats, filling in some roles. And so I went with her, and she actually trained me hands-on in the field. And we were going into different communities. So, we go into different communities where we go to schools, block associations, nights of development, precinct council meetings, community board meetings, pretty much pretty much anywhere that we can possibly get to one, let people know the agency exists, and then two, let people know what the agency actually does.
Why do you think this agency is so important? for
I
our
think that,
civilians?
I think, yes, I'm sorry.
Why do you think it's important for our civilians to know about this agency?
I think that is very important for, the city at large to know because, right now in this climate, we see a lot going on and there are a lot of changes actually being made in justice reform, period. But I think that is very important that, people know that the CCRB exists. That way, they're not feeling like if they had an encounter with an officer and they just didn't like the encounter, they don't have to walk away feeling like there's nothing that they can do,
Oh,
and they
yes,
just have
yes.
to, take it on the chin. You know,
Hmm.
the agency is actually, the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board is actually, we're actually at a New York City agency that is independent and separate from the NYPD. And
It's
what we
good to
do is
know.
we investigate, we mediate, and in some cases, we prosecute allegations of misconduct by members of the NYPD.
Ah, right.
It's an all civilian agency. Our board is composed of 15 members. 5 are appointed by the New York City mayor, 5 are appointed by the New York City Council, 3 are appointed by the NYPD police commissioner, 1 is appointed now by the New York City public advocate, and then 1 is jointly appointed by the NYPD mayor and the New York City council. You know, so we have a jurisdiction that we actually use an acronym called FADO, F-A-D-O, and the F stands for excessive or unnecessary force that may be excessive or unnecessary. Right? And that might look like punching, kicking, slapping, grabbing, use of an impact weapon like a taser, pepper spray, a nightstick, maybe even just brandishing a firearm could be considered as an expression of force. And that's something that we might investigate. The second one is called, is the A, and the A stands for abuse of authority. And that might look like stop, question, frisk, frisk of persons and stop of vehicles, searches of person and vehicles and residences without sufficient cause, right? Or, improper entry or refusing to give me their name and their badge number if I should ask for that, right? The next is D, which stands for discourtesy. And that might look like discourteous conduct, actions, gestures, foul language, use of profanity. The next and last is the O, which stands for offensive language. And by this, I mean any language that inappropriately refers to my race, my religion,
Right.
my ethnicity, my perceived sexual orientation, right? Because just because a man likes dressing like a woman, or a woman might like dressing like a man, doesn't mean that either one of them should be treated any differently, right?
Right.
Because when we look at the side of a police car, we see 3 big letters, right? Courtesy, CPR, and that stands for courtesy, professionalism, and respect. And that's not just put there for decoration; it actually coincides with the NYPD patrol guide. Right. Another thing, it could be, a disability that I might have. I might stutter. That's not a reason to mimic me or become frustrated with me. I might move a little slow because I have a cane. It's not a reason to push me. It could be, Juma Friday and I got on the kufi and the Jala Bear and that's not a reason to make, inappropriate remarks that,
Right.
that connect me because of the way I'm dressed or my religion with, anything that might be derogatory or inappropriately, to speak to refer to me. So those are some things that we might investigate. And, when a person could call us and file one complaint, But out of what I just shared with you, FADO, in that one complaint, there may be more than one allegation in that complaint.
Right. Can a police officer stop you for any reason?
No, not for any reason. There should be a reason to stop you, right? And that would, you know, and that comes in categories, right? But due to, you know, the Right to Know Act that was passed in 2018, that legislation that went into effect October 19th, 2018, an officer has to let me know, depending on the level, right? Because there's levels to it. But one of the things that an officer should be identifying him or herself and letting me know that they're a police officer. And then they should be explaining to me, they should be telling me why they're stopping. Right. And depending on the situation, they should be asking my permission to search me, my person, or, you know, if I got a book bag with me, or I have a briefcase with me or something, or, you know, it's you and you have your purse and they want to search, you know, our bags, they should be asking our permission. Right.
So they can't arbitrarily just go through our bags without our permission, right?
No, it depends on the situation though, as well.
Oh, okay.
So let me say that it depends on the situation, because there is a thing called reasonable suspicion. And at that point, you know, the officer believes that I have committed a crime, I am committing a crime, or I'm about to commit a crime. And at that point, the officer does have authority to stop me, which means I'm just being detained. I'm not necessarily under arrest, and they have the authority to search me. So what a stop, like I said, means that I can't leave, right? I'm being detained. I'm not under arrest, but I can't leave. So I'm stopped. I'm gonna pay attention to what's going on, right? Because I want to, you know, take in as much information as possible. Where am I at? What do these two people? What does this officer look like that has stopped? What kind of vehicle did they come in? Did they walk up? Are they in uniforms? Are they in plain clothes? Did they come in an unmarked vehicle? Are they in a blue and white vehicle? And if they are in a blue and white vehicle, you know, me, myself, I'm not going to remember both of their names and all those numbers on their badges. I'm just not. That's just me. But I would suggest if people can, if you can, you know, take in that information. Was it Officer Johnson, Officer Jones, and these are the numbers that were on the badge. And if you can't remember that, then know that at the back, at the rear of every blue and white vehicle, there are 4 big numbers on the side of the car.
Good. That's a good point. Yep.
So if you can remember those, there was I don't remember the officers' names, but it was 2 of them. It was a man and a woman. They were Black, Latino, Caucasian, Asian, and they got out of car 1, 2, 3, 4. I was on 145th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard coming out of Popeyes, right? And if you remember that information, then I remember that information. So then it's easier for me, right? Because the main thing, right, we want to practice safety first. So I want to walk away from this situation, right? I don't want to stand there and turn into, you know, a street corner lawyer. And I don't want to get, me personally, I don't want to climb up on my soapbox and start, you know, I know my rights and turn this thing, you know, and have the situation go out of control. I want to try to keep control over the situation. So I kind of want to, you know, minimize as much conflict as possible. That's what I want to do.
And you need to notate the time, right? You need to notate the time.
Yes, if I can, you know, look at my watch or my cell phone and get the time, you know, that's helpful. So I know, like, I want to know exactly, like, it's also helpful to know, like, where I'm at.
Right.
So I want to say, like, you know, I'm on 145th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard. I'm coming out of Popeyes. And 2 officers came and approached me, and they pushed me up against the glass, and, you know, my food fell, and it could have been lunch, and, you know, I just got that $5 big box with the drink, and they pushed me up against the wall, and I'm asking, hey, what's going on? And, you know, my food fell, so I'm definitely going to be a little upset if the food fell. and I get a frisk, a pat down, and a frisk is a pat down. And at that time, the officers are checking to see if I have weapons, right?
Right.
Because that's what that's designed for, right? To see if I have weapons. During that, what may happen is a search, right? Because I'm being frisked, and a search may happen. And a search just means to actually, bring something into view that wasn't otherwise seen. So, they might have patted up my pocket. So now if they're patting me down and they say, hey, that left pocket, what's in your left pocket feels kind of suspicious, they now have jurisdiction to actually search that pocket.
Can you take the item out of your pocket?
If they ask me to,
okay,
right? I would not suggest to anyone to just, if you're being stopped and you're being searched, and I don't think that's actually the time to start reaching in your pocket. I wouldn't suggest that to anyone. If you're directed to, then yes.
Right.
To just start putting your hands in your pockets, I wouldn't suggest that at that, because we're dealing with human beings, we're not dealing with robots, and they don't know, they deal with fear as well. And they don't know what I have in my pocket. That's the purpose of like the frisk, right? And the search. So, I wouldn't just start reaching into my pocket, right? So I would just remain cool, calm, and collected. And try to take in as much information as possible. This is what I would do. And then I would, after this encounter, because I want to walk away, right? I want to walk away safely. I want to go home. I got a little fire stick. I want to go home and watch that, right? I like a little anime, right? And I'm gonna call 311. That's the easiest way for me is to call, that I can remember, is to call 311. I know it's COVID going on. You could call our office. You could go online, right? You could go to our website and find, in CCRB.gov/CCRB complaint, and you could, you could file it by mail. You could send us, you could send us an email. The easiest way, call 311. Right.
And what do they ask for?
And ask for the CCRB. They're going to connect you to our agency. They're going to connect you to the first person that you'll come into contact with is one of our intake persons. They're going to take my complaint. They're going to listen to my story and take my complaint. Right. The first thing that they're listening to is to see if it falls in our jurisdiction where we actually have the right to really investigate it. Right. Because let's say, I call, I got a ticket for my car. We don't fight, traffic tickets. But what's the best thing? We're not going to hang up on you. If you call our agency and your complaint doesn't actually fall under our jurisdiction or have anything to do with what we actually do, we're not going to hang up on you. We're going to connect you to the agency that actually handles, what your complaint is, that actually handles your complaint.
That's excellent.
If it falls under our jurisdiction, then what's going to happen is my complaint is going to be given to an investigator. So within 24 to 48 hours, an investigator is going to contact me. They're going to take my story again. They're going to ask me some questions, and I'm going to let them know what happened with the incident. They're going to ask me to come down to our offices at 100 Church Street on the 10th floor, right, between the hours of 9 and 5 p.m., right? Though it's COVID, so right now we're doing a lot of things virtually, but we're still going to take a complaint, and we're still going to investigate that complaint if it falls under our jurisdiction. So one of the things that the investigator is going to do is is the investigator, he or she, is going to listen for the FADO. Excessive, was there excessive and unnecessary force? Was there abuse of authority? Was there discourtesy? Was there offensive language? There could have been 2 or 3 out of the FADO, right? Allegations actually in my story. They're going to investigate each one individually, right? So, you know, then what's going to happen is they're going to return to the scene. You know, they're going to go back to 145th Street in Frederick Douglass, where I said that the incident happened. They're going to interview people for possible witnesses, and, you know, they're going to subpoena all the video footage from every camera around to determine if police misconduct took place. So I may not be conscious of it at the time, but if I'm on 145th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard, I'm actually, like, for example, I'm in the 32nd precinct. So they're going to go to the 32nd precinct. You know, we're going to subpoena those little black books, right, that you see them writing in. We're going to subpoena the body one video cameras, right, camera footage. They're also going to subpoena the roll call minutes, because that determines who was assigned to what.
Right,
and so I said, like, they were in car, let's say they were in car 1, 2, 3, 4, then we're going to need to talk to who was assigned to patrol car 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it was Jones and Smith, right? Or Jones and Cardozo. So, okay, we're going to need to talk to the two of them, right? And we're going to interview, the investigators are going to interview the officers about the incident in question, about the complaint.
Can I ask you, Tim?
Yes.
Can anyone file a complaint no matter what their immigration status is?
Yes. So one of the things we don't do, we don't ask a person's immigration status. We don't do that. You know, we've recently, the board has recently adopted new measures. So sexual harassment is also one of the things that we will investigate. If you're sitting home and you see, you're on your phone scrolling through, and, you know, you see something, an encounter that doesn't look right, like you're on Facebook or on Instagram, and you see an altercation taking place between an officer and a civilian, like somebody might be going live or somebody might have posted it, and you know, don't feel comfortable with what you're seeing, you know, you could file a complaint with us, and it's something that we would also investigate. We would look.
So you can file a complaint for something else that you see, not necessarily something for yourself.
You could be a witness. You could see I could be stopped, and you could be walking by, and you decide to stand there and see, like, what's going on, and you don't like the way that you see, you know, that you see me being handled. You could file a complaint for me. You could say, listen, I was on 145th Street in Frederick Douglass, and I seen the officer stop this young man, and I didn't like the way that they dealt with him. It didn't seem courteous or professional around, you know, and you say, listen, it was around 3:15. And look, it's crazy because I'm saying that this happened to me at 3:15. And now you're filing a complaint. Or let's say I might be an immigrant, and I might be a little nervous about, you know, filing a complaint about a police officer. And let's say you're with me, and you could file a complaint for me. Listen, I was working, and they stopped him, and I didn't like the way that, you know, they dealt with him, and we're gonna investigate that, right? So if we should determine that, you know, police misconduct from my story, if the investigators should determine that police misconduct took place, you know, during their investigation, then, you know, what's going to happen is it's going to start a process, right? So the investigators are going to compile the information. One of the things that we're going to do along the way during the investigation, right? Let me say this. One of the things that they're going to do is I might be offered mediation. So mediation has like a 92% success rate, right?
What does mediation mean?
So mediation means that there will be a person who is neutral, who does not work for the CCRB and does not work for NYPD, And that individual is going to kind of navigate a conversation between me and the officer or officers, right, who weren't involved, right? Because a lot of times, you know, people just want to voice their frustration. They kind of want to get, you know, an explanation. They want to understand what just happened and why it happened. And they want to actually talk to the officer or officers who they had the encounter with, right? This kind of actually gives a person two bites of the apple, because, you know, we could sit down with a mediator and speak with the officers, right? And the mediator is going to navigate the conversation. But let's just say I felt like I kind of just got yes manned. You know, so it's like everything I said, it was like, you're right, Tim, you're right. And that's, to me, that's just not a real conversation, right? Because if you thought I was right, this probably wouldn't have happened. But so let's just say I wasn't necessarily happy with the mediation. It doesn't mean that the case is over.
Oh, good.
Right? So let's just say, you know, I could let the mediator know, listen, I'm not really satisfied. You know, so when Sula comes back, now here comes Sula. I wasn't really satisfied with that mediation. Doesn't mean that the case is over. It goes back to investigations and it will move forward towards possible prosecution.
Oh, wow.
You know? So, you know, one of the things that could happen is, you know, that information is taken, that the investigators collect. You know, that information is taken to determine if determine that it falls under FATO, it's taken and it's given to a 3-member panel. So remember that group of people I mentioned in the beginning, 5 are appointed by the New York City, by the New York City mayor, 5 individuals are appointed by New York City Council, 3 individuals are appointed by NYPD police commissioner, 1 individual is appointed by the NYC public advocate, and 1 individual now is jointly appointed by the the New York City mayor and the New York City Council. Right?
So how many in total?
15.
15. Okay.
Right? So a 3-member panel would then take that information and determine, you know, is there enough evidence to determine what, you know, so for example, so I could file a complaint, right? And one of 4 things could happen. It could be substantiated, which means everything I said happened, right? And there is enough evidence collected by, let's say Sula is the investigator. Sula collected enough evidence to determine that police misconduct took place. What I said happened, and she collected evidence, statements, and video, and it's like, yep, Tim was right. This falls under FATO. You know, there's enough evidence to determine if police misconduct took place, right? And so it could possibly move forward towards a prosecution, a trial that's held at one police plaza. Another outcome that could happen is it could be unsubstantiated. Now, what that means is there's just not enough evidence to determine if police misconduct took place. Doesn't mean that what I said didn't happen. It just means that Sula wasn't able to get enough evidence to prove what I said happened. That's all that means.
And that's why it's so important to gather your evidence.
Very important to remember.
Yes.
And to remain cool, calm, and collected. Another thing, another outcome could be unfounded. Unfounded means I came to Sula, I told Sula this story, and Sula went back and they were like, that guy was never here in Popeyes. That incident never happened. Sula went to, you know, the 32nd, she went to the precinct, collected all that information. And there was no call, there's no log of a police car a unit stopping over there. Sula collected a lot of video from cameras around, and I'm not on any of that video. So it's like, you know, Tim just made this whole story up, right? And so it didn't happen. So that's unfounded. And the last one, a last result is that could be exonerated, which means what I said happened, but the police officers were operating within the confines of the NYPD patrol guide and the law. So I may not necessarily have liked the encounter. I might feel like you stopped me for no reason, or you know, we had contact for no reason, and I didn't like that we had contact. So I might be feeling the way, but Sula conducted an investigation off of the information that I gave her, and it showed that they didn't do anything wrong. Operating inside the confines of the NYPD patrol guide, right? So, you know, do police officers have rules and regulations that they have to follow? Yes, they do. Yes, they do, right? And it's called the NYPD patrol guide. You know,
do we have access to that? Does the public have access to that guide?
Yes, you can actually Google it, right? It comes in a PDF. You know, you can Google it. Suggest like that you download it, save it to your email. It's a really, really big long document. It's a really big book. And take time to read it.
Yeah.
Because you know, information, knowledge is power. You know,
yes,
and they know everything that, you know, us as civilians can and cannot do, right? And we should know what they can and cannot do. Right?
Absolutely.
You should inform yourself, because people, you know, I talk to people and they love to tell me what the police can and cannot do, and a lot of it's based off of feelings.
Right.
It's not really based off. It's not based off of accurate information, because it's not coming out of the NYPD patrol guide. Because if you're telling me something based off of that, you know, you could educate me, you know, and say like, you know, well, they can and cannot do this because of section such and such, subsection
right.
section 2-103, right, or something, you know. But if you're just going off of feelings, that won't make you right, and you'll be saying, oh, they can't do this, when actually they can.
Right.
But if I don't read, I don't know. If I don't read the information, I don't know. And if I don't have a copy of the NYPD patrol guide, how do I really know what the police can and cannot do? You know.
So Tim,
you know,
can you let us know how long is the process from start to finish?
So an individual can file a complaint. You have 18 months, a year and a half. You can file a complaint. So so 18 months ago today, let's say something happened, I could file a complaint today. It happened a year and a half ago today. Tomorrow would be too late. But today I would still be able to file a complaint after 18 months. You know, so, you know, it's very important, you know, I like to encourage people to be active in their communities. It's one of the things, you know, you know, I like to encourage people, you know, to attend, you know, community board meetings. I like to encourage people to attend, you know, their local precinct council meetings. And a lot of people just don't know that these meetings are even happening. So that's why they're not going. But, you know, whatever your local precinct is, I would like to encourage you to go, you know, to those meetings, right? Because if you don't like what's happening in your community and you want to change some things, then you should attend these meetings and give your input, you know, or say something when things are coming up. If you want to change the way things are happening.
Your voice has power.
Right. You know, you don't have to wait to file a complaint, even though, you know, you can file a complaint. We're not going to say, oh, no, don't file a complaint. No, we're never going to tell you that. But, you know, if we in the community, like you hear, like, I don't know, if people are listening to, you know, the mayor and you know, he's really pushing, like talking a lot about, you know, I'm listening to him on the news, and he's talking about, you know, community policing. So he's talking about, like, you know, people from the community being involved in policing. They want to change this new, they want to come up with this new model, right? You know, it's going to involve like clergy, cure violence programs, and you know, that will be a different scope, right? That's going to put policing in a different dynamic, and I think that if people don't like what's going on, take, you know, one of the options you have is to take an active role, right? And be involved, you know, you know, and it could just be something as simple as going to meetings, right, at the local precinct or at the community board, and having your voice heard. You know, it could be something as simple as, you know, going to your elected official's office and letting them know what's going on, and you could ask them to be your voice, right? If you don't want to, if you feel, you know, apprehensive about going down to the precinct yourself and saying something, you know,
in
you
addition, they can write to their representative.
Yes,
right?
you can write to them. You know, their offices are usually open. You know, they all have a community liaison, so that someone who's out in the community, or, you know, deals with their constituents. You know, they, you know, which are people who live in that voting, in that area that they service. You know, those are the constituents. And you know, put them to work for you. You know, you voted for them, put them to work for you. Like, that's what they're there for. And, you know, they're not going to turn you away, because, you know, that's part of why they ran for the position anyway, right? Because they want to service the community that they're in. But, you know, they don't, you know, they're trying, there's a lot of people in one area. So, you know, they're not going to be able to walk around and knock on everybody's door and take a list of complaints of what's going on. So we got to go down there to their offices and let them know what's going on, and ask them to help us, right? Because that's what they fill that seat for.
Amazing. Can I ask you, Tim, what do you know about the use of cell phones and video cameras with the police?
Oh, so you know, that's the big thing now, right? As soon as something happens, people whip out their cell phone and their video and everything. You know, you do have the right to video an officer while carrying out his or her duty, as long as, you know, during the process of trying to record, you're not interfering with them carrying out their duty.
Okay.
You know, so they may ask you to step back. I would suggest that you step back. You know,
because, like you said, at the end of the day, you want to go home. You don't want to.
You know, you safety first, right? Like, safety first. You know, if they're asking you to step back, I would suggest that you step back, right?
Mr. Tim, we have another minute to wrap up before we start having the students ask questions. So maybe, do you have anything else that you want to add? Or you probably can add while the students are asking questions. You want to open the door for questions?
Yeah, we can open the floor to any questions, or that would be great.
All right, thank you. You've given us so much information to think about. So from Pedro Rodriguez, he asks, is there a police officer who can communicate using sign language to help the deaf mute victim? Great question, Pedro.
That is a great question.
Excellent question.
Wow. I know that they have, like, on their phones, they have an app that would translate most languages. As far as sign language, I don't know. I could find that out for you and get that and give the information to Sula.
That would be great. That would be great.
I'm quite sure they have someone in the department that actually does sign. They might have to call that person to come come to the scene.
Right.
but I don't want to give you a guaranteed yes, and I really don't know. So I'll get the information for you and
That
I'll
would
give
be
it to
great.
Sula.
And,
But
and Pedro,
I'm pretty sure they do have people
Mhm.
that sign because they have people that speak a variety of languages. So as
great.
well.
We can get that answer to Pedro. Pedro, as long as you put your name and your teacher's name, I can get that information to you. Excellent question. Thank you. Here, a student asked, should I show my ID and other information if the police ask for them? That's another great question.
So you actually don't have to have ID on you. It's not against the law to not have ID. It's in my best interest to carry identification with
Mhm,
me
mhm.
because I could be detained. I wouldn't necessarily be under arrest, but I could be detained. And now I'm sitting down at the precinct and
Mm,
I'm calling Sula to come and verify that I'm me. And
right,
Sula's at work. So now I got to wait till school's over. And if it
right,
happened
right.
in the morning, then that means I got to wait all the way until 3 o'clock for Sula to come and say, "Oh, that's just Tim Harrell from the CCRB. You can let him go. I know that guy." But it's always in your best interest to carry ID. Um, do you have to show it if asked for? Again, it's in my best interest to produce it.
Just so I
I don't
think
really
some
want
of
to,
our
I don't want to be detained for no reason.
right. I think
Um,
what some of our population might be concerned with, because some of our population are immigrants, and some may not have status, and they don't want a police officer looking at their ID and going in that down that path. So the police
um,
department does not look at immigration status. That's not their
well,
position.
they're not supposed to because I
Right.
know that the mayor has designated New York City as a sanctuary city.
Yes.
So a person's immigrant status is not supposed to matter. Is not supposed to matter as far as their on-site investigation is taking place. You're not supposed to, be calling ICE or anything like that.
Okay.
um, so I understand your concerns. Um, but they're not supposed to. But if you feel
Okay.
like you're being discriminated against,
File a
then
complaint.
what I say file a complaint. If you have an encounter and it doesn't feel right, file a complaint. Let us
Mhm,
investigate.
mhm.
You know, worst case scenario, they were doing their job, right?
Right.
And they were operating within inside, the law and the NYPD patrol guide, right?
Excellent.
Worst case
Thank
scenario.
you. Thank you. Carlos, next question. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Dorelis, who is our assistant principal, he asks, what determines whether a complaint goes to mediation? Ooh, that's a good one.
So first, it has to
That's a
fall
good
under
one.
FADO. That's the first thing. So it has to be a complaint that we would investigate. That's number
Okay.
one.
Okay.
One of the options one of the options we offer is once it's substantiated that police misconduct took place, one of the options is mediation. Like I
Okay.
said, if
So,
mediation is not successful, it will move towards prosecution, and we have a public trial at One Police Plaza.
okay. So the person has the option to either go mediation
Right.
or go trial.
Both parties actually need to agree. The officer
Okay.
needs to agree to the mediation as well.
Okay. That's good to
Right.
know. Thank you.
And let's say, and I would need to agree to it as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. Excellent question, Mr. Dorelis. Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Rosas?
Yeah, there was some anonymous questions and very good questions, I might add at that. So the first one says, what changes can we expect in the way that marijuana possession is policed in New York City in light of the new changes to the laws pertaining to recreational marijuana?
Said, what changes can you expect as far as smoking marijuana?
Possession of marijuana.
Possession of marijuana.
And the laws.
Well, they pretty much well, they just passed the law, right, legalizing recreational marijuana. I do know that selling marijuana is still illegal. Smoking marijuana in locations where you can't smoke cigarettes, that's still gonna apply. I believe that they changed the threshold some years ago on how much you could actually have in your possession. I don't actually know what that amount is at this time. But I do believe that it was last, I don't know if they raised it. I believe it was like 28 grams. So, but
Okay.
I could always find out. So don't let me start guessing, because then I'm gonna start freestyling. And I'm not even a rapper, so I don't want to start freestyling. I know that they had changed the threshold of how much you could actually possess in your possession without it being a criminal offense. So I will find out that I will get that information and get that back to Sula and answer your question.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Next question is, what can I do when a police officer does not follow a court order?
What can you do when a police officer does not follow a court order? Well, I'm not actually a lawyer, so I want to say that to that person first. I kind of don't like, what kind of court order? Like, that's broad. That's a very broad question.
Right.
The only thing I could suggest to you is to seek legal counsel. If that happens, then seek legal counsel, and they can advise you.
Okay. This wasn't asked in tandem with that question, but since you mentioned legal counsel, what happens if the civilian cannot afford legal counsel? Is there a free agency that they can reach out to?
Oh yeah, the Legal Aid Society.
Yes.
The Legal Aid Society. They have a variety of lawyers down there that practice all kinds of law. Because, you know, there's not just criminal law, right? There's immigration law. There's divorce law. You know, there's capital law. I mean corporate law. Just for, you know, civil law. Just for, you know, just to give a kind of idea to your students. There's different kinds of law, and they cover a variety of categories at the Legal Aid Society. So, you know, even if it's an immigrant situation, you could go to the Legal Aid Society too.
Now remember that name,
that would assist
Legal
you
Aid
with that.
Society. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think we have another question. I believe it's being written down. I'll check. Johanna?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Good job. Good job.
Safe to say there are going to be a lot of changes with regards to changes in marijuana laws. I think you're going to see a lot more kids selling Doritos on the street. That's just, you know. But that's
Did you say Doritos?
And donuts.
Yeah.
You know, even with that, you know, I encourage people to you know, pay attention. You know,
yes,
it's not a license to go crazy. Like, don't think that. You know, yeah, it's not a license to go crazy, and it's you know, if you can't smoke a cigarette someplace, don't light up your marijuana there. Because it's kind of going to be the same rules. If it's a no smoking area, then it's like a no smoking area. I wouldn't volunteer for that.
Right.
You know, like, yeah, it's not a license to go crazy. I wouldn't do that. You know, and that's not going to be the time to say, oh, I'm going to grab as much weed as I can and you know, and I'm gonna start selling and all that kind of stuff. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Be safe. Be safe
Yeah, you know,
always.
like pay attention.
Hmm.
I've seen lately, like, since they passed it, people are taking advantage, taking opportunities, to light up in front of police officers and do this and do that, and I wouldn't encourage you to do that. I want you to practice safety,
Hmm. Hmm.
to pay attention, don't volunteer, don't volunteer for unnecessary situations and harassment and to put yourself in harm's way. Situations, you could be on your way home and it's like Training Day. Like, I don't know if you ever seen that movie Training Day
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
with
Enzel.
Denzel, and he's asking the guy, you want to go to jail or you want to go
Wanna go
home?
home.
And that's the kind of decision you want to be asking yourself. You don't want to jump out the window to do reckless, to for you to commit reckless behavior, trying to antagonize police officers.
Right,
Like,
right.
don't do that. I've been witnessing a lot of that lately, and don't do that. If you feel that you have an encounter with the police officer and you kind of just didn't like what was going on, file a complaint with us, right? You don't have to become confrontational, even though regardless how you might feel about it at the time, remain, cool, calm,
Calm.
and collective, taking
Mhm.
as much information from this encounter, what they look like. Was it a man and a woman? What car were they in? What time was it? Where were you? Like, taking that kind of information, because that helps the investigator,
Mhm.
that lessens some of the work and makes it helps the investigator be more capable, or maybe more able to narrow down the officers who you actually
Mhm.
had the conflict with,
Mhm.
or had the encounter with. Don't just practice safety. Remember safety first, right? And let us investigate. That's what I say. you
Thank
know
you,
um
Mr. Tim. Thank
yeah.
you, Tim. You amazing information for all of us. And every time I hear you present, there's always something new that I learn, and always great questions that our students ask and our
Yes, great
principals.
questions.
Right, right. So you have two things to get back to me on,
Yeah, they should
right?
be they should be in those rooms, when the mayor and other individuals are speaking. They should
Yes.
be in those rooms when elected officials are speaking, asking those hard questions.
Absolutely. They're
Yeah,
thinkers. Our
yeah,
students are thinkers. Um,
yeah.
um, Tim, thank you so much. I really appreciate your input and presenting today. And we miss you coming to Manhattan. Please let us know, maybe in September when we open up and we're full swing. We'll have you back. We'll have you back in, and I'm sure I'll have you on another podcast and doing this again for those who miss this, because it's really important information, especially with what's going on in the climate today. So if any of your students, any of you did not place your name, first name, last name, and your teacher's name in the chat box, please do so now. In addition, next week we have another podcast coming up. Let me give you the date. This is on April 29th at the same time, 11:30 to 12:30. Tim, this is the NYPD coming in.
Oh, no. Okay,
The,
nice,
the
nice,
NYPD
nice.
is going to be giving information about how to remain safe in
and
your
and and
home
that's
and
good. They have
also outside. Yes.
and they have a lot of things going on. They have a lot of programs that they actually run. So, like, just in
Yes.
in the sense of fairness, right? They
Yep.
actually do a lot in the community, man.
Yes.
I really want you to know that. So, like, if you have kids, they're running programs that your kids can take
Yes.
advantage of.
Yes.
Um,
PAL,
right? The explorers. They're running a lot of programs that you know in the community, that people should be taking advantage of, right? That you could take advantage of.
Yes.
So I just want
For
to say
free.
that.
For
I want to
free.
thank you for having me, Sula. As always a pleasure to, to talk to you, to see you. When
Yes.
you guys open up, the principal is great there and in Brooklyn. You guys just rock.
We
Right
got
now.
it. We got it.
Manhattan and Brooklyn,
Hey.
Mid-Manhattan and Brooklyn, you guys just rock. I love the work that you guys and do with your students, and it really takes a lot, right, to do what you guys do, because that's it's not like the high paying job, like making $100,000, right? You do that. You guys do that because you care. Like being a teacher, you got to do that because you have the compassion and the drive to want to see people do better, right? Because it's not like you're walking out of there with $500,000 every year, like the guy down at Exxon. So I really commend you guys on what you do and the work that you do. And like I said, when like you said, when you guys open back up, you already know, Sula. You send me the email. I am there.
You're so good.
Nothing to haggle about.
Thank you so much, and we thank you for the work that you do and sharing your knowledge with us. Because without people like you said, knowledge is power. Without this knowledge, we're in the dark. So we're going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and with the Manhattan Adult Learning Center podcast. We'll see you on the 29th with the NYPD, and please put it on your calendar, so we'll see you then. And Tim,
got it.
Big hug
Thanks
to you.
A lot.
Big hug. Thank you.
Guys
Thank you, everyone.
Have a blessed day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.